Take me to work. Alright, today I want to talk about something that I've run into recently with a lot of my AI stuff, and it really applies to life in general. Planning. Having a plan, having a roadmap, having, where you want to end up. So important, and I really learned that lesson a little bit more and really got hammered home with doing a couple of projects I've been working on. I'm working on this app that helps my sales reps price jobs, price installations, projects, and I kind of went into it, Claude Code, and I started just telling it what I wanted and kind of, but as it's going on, it's just, and we can add this, and I can add that, and I can add this. Oh, we should do this. And it's like now it's just become this Frankenstein of a project where there's like redundancies, there's things that, for the user would be confusing. I'm getting hung up where I don't even want to look at it because it's just like, how am I going to fix this thing? I mean, I don't want to start over because I'm so far into it, but I don't know. I'm not sure what to do, but I think the lesson, you can learn a lesson from everything in life, is you got to plan. You got to spend some time just sitting down and figuring out what you want to do and what you want to accomplish. I think it was Stephen Covey said, start with the end in mind, and that's how you start. You basically work backwards, where you want to be, back to where you're at, and then you build the steps to get there. And an example of the app, I needed something that was going to give the guys prices, because I could sit there and take the spreadsheets from suppliers for the material and the pricing from the labor and combine it and do the markup and all that stuff. But I'm like, well, why would I do that? And then, last year or 2 years ago, I made a spreadsheet where I could just change the numbers and it would do the calculations. And I worked on that spreadsheet for probably 2 weeks. All the tabs and trying to get it to interlink and all that stuff, and it was just a nightmare. And then half the time it didn't work anyways, so it's like, it was frustrating at the time. It must have been 3 years ago, because I didn't have AI. I mean, that's how fast this AI is really coming into our lives, because now you remember everything before AI and now with AI, and how reliant we've become on this thing. But so instead of doing all that work of putting a spreadsheet together or manually putting together a price sheet, I came up with the idea of having Claude do it. I started out in Claude Cowork, and I was just giving it the numbers, and I wanted to just calculate and output the spreadsheet, which I should have just did that to start, so I at least had it. But I kind of started it, and I'm like, well, why don't I switch to Claude Code, and I can make this an app, and I could do this and I could do that. And then the other thing is, like, so none of the CRMs that we use, even though they're specific for our industry, none of them have a really good way to present price. They don't really work with sales as well as they really should. So I was like, I need something where when the sales reps in the house, they get the measurements, they have the pricing, and they need to show the homeowner, okay, this is your options for pricing. Here's our financing options. Here's, in our industry, a lot of times you do a good, better, best setup where, depending on their budget or what they're looking to do, you can set up that, and it gives them more options. So that's what I wanted to do. Take the pricing, put it into the price presentation, and then, then they could go from there and hopefully sell the job. But it just became this huge monster. And then as I add things, it just gets more convoluted and convoluted. I spend a lot of time on the admin section. I mean, I've got it to where I could get a spreadsheet, like a PDF or a Excel spreadsheet from a supplier with pricing or a picture, upload it into the system, and then it has AI that'll read it and then make line items for each thing on the price sheet. And then same thing with the labor. Here's what we get charged for this, 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 and this, and then it takes that information, uploads it, and then it takes both of it, combines it, does markup, puts tax on the material, does markup, blah, 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 and gives us the price that we want to sell the job. That was the goal. But what I'm realizing is like every product is different, every product's measured differently, every product is priced differently. Some things are simpler, some are harder. Some maybe I never really thought about how everything is priced, so now I'm kind of working through that. And then as I'm going along, I'm like, because we use a CRM that's basically made for a roofing company, right? But we do everything, and really less and less roofing, to be honest with you. So made for a roofing company, came out, was very inexpensive, and so we jumped on it because we were with one CRM program that was charging us almost $4,000 a month. I'm like, this is ridiculous. Because I remember the first CRM that we bought, it was literally $1,400, which at the time was like 2005, 2006. $1,400. You put it on your computer, and then you could hook up like a network, like an inter-office network, and everybody used that $1,400 product. And we used that for 8 or 9 or even 10 years before we had to switch anything, because it just worked. Simple. And then they got into this whole SaaS thing where everything's per month, and a new product will come out. So we went from that one that was, set up where you just put it on a computer. I mean, that's the old way of doing it, obviously. But then they went to like a subscription-based thing where they wanted to sign up, and I'm like, well, let's see what else is out there. And I think we got advice from some organization we were in to switch, and we ended up. So the one we were using was really based for retail, and we were doing a lot of like insurance restoration, hail damage to roofs type stuff. So this new product came out, we ended up switching to that product, and it was reasonably priced, even though it was more expensive than just buying the thing. But it was a monthly subscription. And then they added a bunch of features, and then they doubled their price like overnight. I mean, ridiculously. And then you're paying per user per month. Sometimes it's like $75 to $100 a user. You're a company, you've got 4 or 5 sales reps, you've got production guys, you've got crews. I mean, it adds up. So anyways, the product, we were okay happy with it, but it wasn't doing everything we wanted it to do. And so there was another product. At the time, I kind of stepped back from the business, and I had like a sales manager that was kind of doing things. And he made the decision to switch the CRM to this other CRM because he felt it would do better job representing us, more automations, whatever. I don't know what his thought process was. But with all the bells and whistles, everything that you needed to add on a monthly charge, it was like $3,800 a month. With all the users and the features that you wanted. I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous, to be honest with you. So we switched away from that. A new product came out. It was more geared towards roofers, but it was so much more cheaper. It was only a couple $100s a month, and it was unlimited users and everything like that. So we switched to save the money. And honestly, I don't think we were using the features on the expensive program. So the new program was fine. It just had some deficits in marketing. You couldn't get the reports and the information that you really wanted. The sales reporting was pretty weak too. Actually, when we first got it didn't even have a calendar for appointments. So they added that, and they keep adding new features all the time. One interesting side story, they just did a big reveal. They had this big hour-long webinar about all the new features and stuff they had coming out. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh my God, do these people even know what the hell they're doing? Do they even know what industry they're in? It was pretty crazy. I mean, they introduced new features like an AI receptionist, and the guy demoed it and it failed. It was like horrible. They had to like go away from it. They had they were adding features that were like things that you would think they would have thought about from the very beginning. They would have planned. I mean, if I was gonna make a CRM for this industry, I'd look at every single one that's out there and pick and choose the things that were the best of each one and put them all together. I mean, the truth is now though, you've got AI. The next big CRM, and it'll probably be Salesforce or some big company that's gonna do this, but they'll build the AI right into it. You'll tell the AI what you want and it'll just build the CRM, because that's the biggest thing. When you switch a CRM, you have to migrate your data, but you also have to set it up, and you have to set up different things, and it's usually an onboarding process, and it can take weeks, and you got, you know, programmers and all this stuff. That was kind of the old way. Or just take it out of the box and try to run with it that way. But nowadays, like, you look at things like Go High Level, who are really integrating AI, but I still think they've got the framework that's kind of stiff in there with the AI. Someone's going to make 100% fluid CRM that it's just going to start out with, you know, hello, my name is Robbie, your AI assistant. Where do you want to start? And you're just going to type in stuff about your business, and it's going to start building the CRM to do exactly what you want, to capture the information that you want, to have the calendars that you want, to do the automations and the follow-ups, you know, automatically, you know, scheduling, dropping things in different buckets to keep track of where it is in like a sales process or a production process. I can see that somebody's going to do that, and you know, it'll just be basically a wrapper on one of these big LLMs. You know, I would guess probably Claude, because it seems like Claude's trying to get in everywhere. That's who I believe Go High Level integrated into their CRM. But, you know, it's just interesting. I guess the one thing though that would be, going back to my original thoughts, planning. You know, if you didn't sit down and plan what you were telling that AI before it started setting up that CRM, it could really become a messy situation like I'm in. So it's interesting. I asked the AI, because working on my pricing app, I got to the point where, you know, the one CRM we're using has a really nice like proposal type development where it makes a nice proposal with all our information, and you can email it, and it'll send you a notice when the people open the email and all that stuff. And so I asked the AI, you know, would that be hard to do? No, we could do that with this, that, and this. I'm like, okay. So I'm like, and then I started thinking, what about becoming a whole, getting rid of like Go High Level, getting rid of our roofer thing, and it was like it would be complicated. We could do like 80%, but what Go High Level has is a lot of the compliance stuff with texting and calling and that kind of stuff, so it'd be difficult. But anyways, I'm gonna wrap this up here, get some calls, but planning. Sit down and plan, whether it's a small thing, a small project that you're doing, a vacation, or whatever it is. Sit down and plan, and then sit down and think about overall your life. Where do you want to end up? Because if you don't have a plan, if you don't have a vision, you don't know where you're going, you're just wandering. It'd be like trying to do a trip without GPS, or back in the day a map book, and figuring out where you're going. You just wander and you're lost. So that's a lesson for today. Spend some time thinking about where you want to end up, and then work backwards on the steps it's going to take to get there. And really, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step. So I'll talk to you later. Have a good Monday.